Okay, we'll start right now. Okay, good morning, everyone. This is our first ESG webinar organized by MTCC, and we are very happy to organize this for all of our stakeholders and participants who have joined us online. I appreciate your attendance today. And just some housekeeping rule before we start our session. Okay. Participants will be muted throughout the webinar. So if you try to speak, I cannot really hear you from my end. So please use the Q&A chat box or the chat. So there are two options, right? The Q&A or the chat box to share your input or ask any questions. And each panelist will be given 20 minutes to share their content. And at the end of the 5-minute presentation, we will open for questions. Depending on the number of questions, we will take one or two to be answered verbally. And panelists can provide your written answers in the chat box and interact with the participants as well subsequently, so after your session. I may interrupt in between session at the 15-minute mark just to keep our time checked and consistent. All right. So my name is Edmund Lim. I am the Strategy and Special Project Officer at MTCC. I'm very excited to be your moderator today. We have very honored to invite our international and local panelists. I will quickly introduce each of them. Wikkie is the PEFC International Marketing Engagement Manager. So all of our panelists has been very kind to share more personal fun facts about them for us to get to know them in a more personal level. So Wikkie is passionate about the environment. She shared that she used to climb trees after school to eat her snacks. I was telling her that I wish that I can join her. And she has lived more than half her life in Singapore. She rescues animals and she dreams of having a farm. So today she'll be sharing with us building a sustainable future with PEFC certified timber. Next up, we have Matthias Gelber, also known as the Green Man. He is an international ESG expert. He comes from a very small German kampong with 500 inhabitants, and she was also voted the greenest person on the planet in 2008. She loves to eat loads of musang king and blackthorn durian, and owns 20 years old 4 hectares biodiverse reforestation plantation in Panama. He will be sharing with us ESG innovative opportunities. We have Ganesan Suppiah, former general manager at HeveaBoard Berhad. He is now working as a strategy projects, working with the current group MD of HeveaBoard. He has been with HeveaBoard for close to 3 decades. He was sharing with me that he almost has become a part of the building. So he lives in KL, but spends 5 days in Gamas. If you are dialing in from Malaysia, you know where Gamas is. So he loves the challenges in the industry and problem solving and troubleshooting in the plant. I guess that's what keeps him going for so long in HeveaBoard. Ganesan loves animals, and his wife and him have an animal shelter in Kuala Selangor with 300 abandoned and injured dogs. I wish I can visit someday. Maybe all of us at MTCC can pay a visit. Ganesan is a DIYer, always fiddling with things in his car and around the house, and he enjoys buying all types of tools, even though he don't need them. We know where to go and who to find if we need tools for ourselves. So Ganesan will be sharing with us 30 years of success with ESG in HeveaBoard. Right. Next, we have Mitch. Mitch is the CEO of Malaysian Green Building Council. Mitch has lived in Malaysia since 2007. His hometown is Malacca, and he has spent over a decade certifying green buildings and helping shape national sustainability policies. He enjoys contributing to webinars that include more than one Gelber. So if you notice, we have Matthias Gelber and Mitch Gelber on our webinar today. And they will probably share about their relationship later on. And so Mitch will be sharing with us sustainability in the built environment. And next we have Edmund Lim, Managing Director from Tong Sim Wood Industries. Edmund aims to build more mass timber structure with a Lego mindset. That's a very interesting perspective. We'll hear more from him later. And he has a vision to develop industrial tree plantation for future use and reforestation. He is a nature and animals lover. And interesting fact about him, he loves sipping whiskey. So he'll be sharing with us sustainable construction with certified timber. So we are very honored and excited to have all of our international experts in their respective field and also local companies to come up and share as a local case study to give a more relevant picture in Malaysia. I have Dr. Farah Shamin, our MTCC CEO, with us. She has also very kindly shared with us some fun facts about herself. Her ambition since childhood was to be a kind person. And I remember having this conversation with her, and her father was asking her, like, are you sure that's not your ambition? You should be a doctor or a lawyer, you know, Asian parents. And well, I guess she has attained Dr. Farah Shamin in some way. She has lived 3/4 of her life like a nomad. She speaks Japanese and watches Japanese news every morning. She loves watching cartoon. These are her two favorite cartoons to watch. So before I pass the floor to Dr. Farah Shamin, I guess my goal for today's webinar is for everyone to maximize your learning today and have a positive association of the word sustainability when you hear of it. So it's not a compliance or something scary when people talk about sustainability. So I hope that you maximize your learning and you get to switch that perspective at the end of this session. So I will pass the floor to Dr. Farah for her introduction.
Thank you, Anlin. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to all panelists and participants. First of all, I would like to say thank you to the panelists for agreeing to be part of this program. And to all participants, I would like to mention that today is a very special day since we were able to get hold of a set of distinguished speakers. Some of them have attained international recognition. Some of them have had vast experience as a practitioner of ESG, as well as they are model companies and model individuals who have embedded or embodied the ESG practical side of the ESG into their lives and into the organization, as well as into the companies that they have built along the way. So as you know, MTCC is a scheme owner of the Malaysian Timber Certification Scheme. We have been in the market since 1998, and MTCC is the first tropical timber certification scheme, forest management certification scheme, that has been endorsed by PEFC. So by right of that relationship, Wikkie is here as a representative of PEFC, and we work very closely as an endorsed component of a national governing body to PEFC. So I would like to take the opportunity for on behalf of MTCC to once again highlight that MTCC has been part of the success story of sustainable forest management in Malaysia and throughout the world. And from the perspective of the tropical timber industry, we know that there has been many ups and downs and learnings and over the years, research and technology that has supported the tropical timber industry. And we know that as we move along, it is very important for us to cross share our knowledge. So knowledge and applicability of what we are doing beyond the certification of the forest into the applicability of the certification of products into several sectors. So as for today, although you see that we have several speakers who will be talking about the usage for timber and into the built environment and so on, but we would like to take the opportunity to invite all the participants today to open your minds, to listen, learn. I myself very excited to listen and learn from all our distinguished speakers. And I hope that our two certificate holders, we have MTCS PEFC certificate holder with us, Mr. Ganesan from HeveaBoard and Tong Sim. So they are an example that we would like to feature today, and I hope we take lots of opportunities to listen and learn from them, ask questions, get a lot of secrets of the trades from them, and I hope we will all have a fantastic session today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Farah. We will be starting our first panelist session by Wikkie. And just to remind everyone again, the mic is not available for general participants, but you are very welcome to share your questions or your thoughts in the chat box and also the Q&A panel down below. So let me reshare my screen. We can have the next session by Wikkie Netten. Again, she's from PEFC and she's the Marketing Engagement Manager. So over to you, Wikkie.
Good morning, everyone. Selamat pagi. Thank you, Evelyn, for the kind introduction and Dr. Farah. It's such a pleasure for me to be here with you today. And a big thank you to my colleagues at MTCC, the wonderful organizers and my fellow speakers, and to all of you to take your time out of your busy schedule to join us. So over the next 20 minutes, I would love you to take you on a little journey. A journey into how we can build a sustainable future together. And that future starts at the forest, because forest and their ecosystems are the essential element for our future. Let's take a virtual tour together. So yours and our future start at the forest. As we depend on forests for our survival, for the air we breathe, to the wood we use. For rural and indigenous communities, forests are not simply economic assets, they are lifelines. In some communities, more than half of household income from forest resources. Take the Ulamuda region, for example. Here, forests are essential, not only for local economies, but also for critical needs like water and food security. So forests are truly vital, and it's our shared responsibility to protect them, both for the present and for the generations to come. Globally, more than 5 billion people rely on forest and non-timber products for food, medicine, or livelihoods. And here in Malaysia, the FAO Asia Pacific estimates that about 4 to 5 million people are directly dependent on forest for subsistence or income. With a national population of approximately 33 million, that means around 12 to 15% of Malaysians rely on forest in a very direct way. And we depend on forest for much more. The forest value chain supports the wider economy, from furniture, construction, to toilet paper, packaging, energy, and even the clothes we wear. These industries depend on forest. And today we are seeing a strong shift back towards forest-based materials. For decades, timber was the foundation for countless products. Over time, many of these materials were replaced by alternatives. But now we're returning to the basics, recognizing the renewable, sustainable value that forests provide. And this will lead to the increasing demand for timber. According to the World Bank, this is leading to an increase of 4-fold by 2050. So what is going to happen to our forest? And this is where PEFC comes in. PEFC, the program for the endorsement of forest certification, is an NGO dedicated to balancing social, environmental, and economic sustainability issues, and inspiring and helping people, companies, and communities to reach their sustainability goals. PEFC promotes sustainable forest management on a global scale, and more important, at the local level and on the ground. And at PEFC we understand that forest and the dependency on forest is different in every country. And it's our bottom-up approach that has led to growth. It started in 1999 as a response to the needs of small and family forest owners in Europe, enabling them to achieve certification and access markets. And these smallholders joined forces to create an international forest certification system dedicated to promoting sustainable forest management. And as Dr. Farah was mentioning earlier, MTCC started in 1999 at the same time as PEFC. So MTCC is, yes, our long-term partner on safeguarding forests in Malaysia. So over time, PEFC has expanded, and it's now the world's largest forest certification system. 75% of forests that are certified globally are PEFC certified. And today, PEFC has 57 members, with more than 293 million hectares of forest certified, and over 30,000 chain of custody certified companies. PEFC certified products can be found in 89 countries. The 293 million hectares that is certified is equivalent to 9 times the size of Malaysia. So the areas in dark green that are PEFC members with endorsed systems, like MTCC in Malaysia, and the light green areas that are members progressing towards endorsement. The dark gray areas represent Russia and Belarus, which due to the ongoing conflict are currently not permitted to export or place products on the market with a PEFC claim. And you can see that dip in the next chart, where you can see how we, together with our colleagues, safeguarding forests globally. With 75% of the world's certified forests under our certification, the highest market share, we enable countless of industry to source their materials responsibly. But skill alone isn't what defines us. It's our ability to adapt, to empower, and to support inclusive, locally led sustainable forest management that makes us relevant to countries like those in Asia Pacific. Globally, consumers and business are seeking sustainable products. They are key drivers behind the growing uptake of certification and the rising demand for supply chain transparency and traceability. PEFC certification, with its chain of custody verified by independent third parties, provides full traceability from the forest to the end product. It's a powerful tool for businesses to demonstrate and communicate their commitment to sustainability. Companies that commit to sustainable forestry gain a competitive advantage and position themselves as a preferred business partner. And here's a great example of how PEFC certified timber was a top priority. When the iconic Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris was rebuilt, sustainability guided every step of the restoration. Certified timber became a top priority, with the project earning PEFC project certification, guaranteeing that the solid oak used to reconstruct its historic roof structure was responsibly sourced. A powerful example of how we can preserve the past while protecting the future. And the French company Bosch, they went on to win the contract to supply PEFC certified wooden chairs. For Bosch, it's unthinkable to use wood without the assurance that it comes from sustainable managed forest. And this unwavering commitment secured them the opportunity to supply 1,500 chairs for Notre Dame de Paris. An example closer to home, we too are building a sustainable future with certified timber. And a standout example is the academic building south of the Nanyang Technology University in Singapore. At the time of its completion, it was the largest mass timber building in Asia, spanning an impressive 42,000 square meters and incorporating 13,000 cubic meters of PEFC certified timber. This project too achieved PEFC project certification, ensuring that every piece of timber was responsibly sourced. It's a shining example of how Singapore is embracing innovation, sustainable construction to reduce environmental impact while creating inspiring spaces for learning and collaboration. But then came something even bigger. At the World Expo in Osaka, the world's largest wooden architectural structure was taking center stage. Recognized by the Guinness World Records, the Grand Roof, a circular wooden ring that houses national and thematic pavilions, demonstrates what is possible with wood. The Grand Roof, designed by Japanese architect Shu Fujimoto and one of the world's largest wooden structure, comprises 60,000 square meters of timber. It is built using 70% of local Japanese cedar and 30% of imported Scots pine. The project embodies circular design and a climate-conscious construction. Sustainability is at the heart of Expo 2025, and timber plays a steering role. Not just because it's renewable, because it enables modular construction, easy disassembly, and material reuse. 6 national pavilions at Expo Osaka have chosen PEFC certified timber for the building of their pavilion, making a strong statement. These nations' commitments reflect a shared vision that sustainability isn't just about how we build, but what we build with and how we design for the future. For structures meant to last just 6 months, timber offers unmatching speed, flexibility, and circularity. But when it's certified by PEFC, it carries a powerful message that environmental and social responsibility matters from forest to finished structure. A powerful driver for sustainable construction today is the network of the Green Building Councils, or GBCs, around the world. The World Green Building Council catalyzes the uptake of sustainable and decarbonized built environments for everyone, everywhere. They work to deliver on the ambitions of the Paris Agreement and the United Nations Global Goals for Sustainable Development. These councils are setting benchmarks for environmental responsibility in the construction sector and champion best practice to deliver on the 2030 decarbonization and sustainability goals for the construction sector. Many green building councils worldwide recognize PEFC certified timber by awarding points within their green building rating tools, from BREEAM and Green Star to LEED aligned systems. This inclusion reflects growing trust in PEFC's rigorous standards and its role in supporting circular, sustainable construction. We have a strong message from CASB, the Green Building Council in Japan, that timber from forests that is not sustainable managed is not renewable. With regulations and stakeholder expectations as driver, sustainability reporting is now taking a more prominent role. Companies are required to not only meet, but exceed the evolving non-financial reporting standards. The PEFC certification equips companies to meet these expectations, providing their commitment to responsible forest management and ethical sourcing. As a trusted global partner, PEFC supports sustainability reporting across 14 key topics, helping companies manage and communicate their environmental, social, and governance performance. By integrating our certification into your operation, you demonstrate leadership in sustainable forestry while delivering measurable positive impact for the planet, society, and your business. We're going to play a short video of about 1 minute. Looks like we have some technical issues here. There we go. You could hear the sound just now, Andy. Okay, I think we have some technical difficulties. If it's not going to work, Then I will close my session. Okay, the links to the videos will be shared later on, so you can still watch them.
So sorry for the technical error. We can play the video again at our break later on. So,
Sure.
Wikkie,
No problem, Andy.
I'll share it back to you for your closing.
Sure, thank you, Anlene. So by achieving PEFC certification or sourcing PEFC certified material, you too are building a sustainable future for your business, your family, and the world. Thank you for listening to me.
Thanks a lot, Wikkie. I am very inspired by your sharing, and I see many project certifications from PEFC. In Malaysia, timber is not something new for us. We see a lot of kampong houses that have been built with timber structures for as long as I was born and for many decades before that. But as you rightly mentioned, timber that is not sourced from sustainably managed forests is not renewable. So it is a great insight that you have shared with us. Thank you very much, Wikkie. We will move on to the next session by Matthias Gelber. But before that, let me check if we have any questions in the chat box. We have one from Othman. I'll read it out and perhaps Wikkie can take this question. What is the government's role in closing the execution loopholes within the timber supply chain, and how can it leverage MTCS PEFC certification as a mandatory due diligence framework to ensure that companies are not only certified on paper, but are also verifiably implementing robust ESG practices, particularly in their social and governance commitment? Wikkie, you're muted. If you could just turn on your
Thank
mic.
you for the
Okay,
question. Yes, good question. And put it this way, there's always much more that we can do. PEFC is a voluntary system. It's not mandatory. So while I understand that there is a need, especially with the current climate change, to safeguard our future on a much larger scale, and we can see the examples that Europe has taken with the EUDR, where there are stricter regulations made by addressing where the timber is coming from and ensuring that it is sustainably managed. For Asia, we don't have something like that in place. We do, however, have guidelines, which most of the countries are committed to ensure that there is no deforestation material within the supply chain. These are, however, guidelines, and they are not mandatory goals. So I think from all levels, sure, governments can have stronger implementation, but at the same time, I think businesses and consumers can play a role to ensure that they are showing the demand for sustainable materials. But I'm happy to discuss more offline. Feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you, Wikkie. Right, we will, if there's no more questions, we will pass the floor to Matthias Gelber. Matthias, you are welcome to share your screen.
Yeah, sikit lama jadi bukit. That will be my opening statement. I'll share with you later on why. At the moment, I am here as on the screen as a participant, so I cannot share my slides. Maybe you can change the settings, but never mind. We can straight away go into the nuts and bolts of the topic. I lived in Malaysia for 12 years, so that's why I was called in Malaysia while I lived there the Orang Hijau, the green man. You might not see it here, but it's actually a green shirt. My other batik shirt that I tend to wear when I'm on stage is currently in Malaysia. I live in the Philippines now, and I will share later on with you where I learned Sikit Sikit Lama Lama Jadi Bukit. It's quite an interesting story. I can now share my slides. All right, here we go. But don't worry so much about the slides. You know, the key is really the overarching message. And first of all, thank you, Dr. Farah and Enlin, for organizing such an amazing kind of lineup today. It's such a great honor. Okay, I don't have as beautiful hair as Wikkie has. Maybe, you know, the days when I lived in my kampung, it looked a bit similar like that. You might see one or two pictures later. And I think, you know, there are so many opportunities out there for you guys because you have the biogenic carbon in your product. And this is one of the biggest assets when we look at business opportunities. And I'll go into more detail later on. Here you can see the beautiful hair that I used to have. It's the guy on the left, the blonde guy. So same color as Wikkie nowadays, but not as long, and it has gone. But I'll share with you a scientific conclusion about the Botak lifestyle in a minute. This was me skiing when I was living in the kampung in Germany. And my kampung is a real kampung, 500 people only. Everyone knows everyone else. But the problem nowadays for the current generation is I had 4 months of snow every winter. They are lucky if they have 2 weeks where they can go skiing. Their skiing are much better. But behind the house, you see outside no snow. I can see the impact of a changing climate in my little village. Even now, the forests, if you look back at this picture, up there, behind the animals, the cows, those hills are now completely botak. The pine trees have actually been destroyed by the bark beetle. He used to be killed off in Europe with a cold winter. Now the winters are very soft. The bark beetles have survived. They have been doing their makan job and eating up a lot of these trees. And the trees have very little commercial value now. So this is the danger of climate change in my little kampung. This was lucky me next to Obama 2008 in a Malaysian men's magazine, Clive magazine. By the way, our female quota is very good today, right? All the free start of speakers were ladies. So this is one of the usual ESG topics that we look at: diversity, equity, and inclusion. Your ratio of female senior management. MTCC is leading the charge. In charge is a strong power lady from Penang. So there we go. We are already doing very well on the ESG criteria. But guys and ladies, I'm telling you, you know, the latest scientific research says the most eco-friendly haircut is this one. Otak, shiny, save time, save water, save shampoo, you know, is very good for the planet. So all the men who are listening today, I strongly recommend you go botak. But this is the story of where I learned Sikit Sikit Lama Lama Jadi Bukit. For the 12 years that I lived in Malaysia, I lived with an electricity bill of less than $10. My landlady was confused. She freaked out. Hey, Matthias, why are you never at home? She was getting the electricity bill. My first one was about 31, then 30, 28. The British Matsala before me, his average bill was always like 550 ringgit a month. So she was confused. I said to her, hey, Wan Sri Rowena, I'm the green man, right? If I don't practice what I preach. So one of the things that I was doing as well was I didn't own a car for the 12 years while I was living in Malaysia. Now we have Grab, but in those days, we only had this red and white option, right? And when I came to Malaysia, I was very gung-ho. The taxi driver asked me, oh, what's your job? I was there on Malaysia, my second home, 2004. I think one of the youngest ever Malaysia, my second home applicants in Malaysia in those days. I was still below 40s, but now, you know, I'm a little bit older, but hopefully the botak keeps me looking young. So the cab driver, what do you do here in Malaysia? I said, oh yeah, I'm trying to make people and companies go green. And then the cab driver told me, oh, wow. That's going to be very difficult, my friend. Very, very difficult. Malaysia, no money, no talk. Unless you are going to help people make money, forget it. They won't be interested. They won't listen. And then we kept talking. And I tried to explain him step by step, there will be business opportunities. I always remember the first talk I gave in Southeast Asia, 1997 in Indonesia. I was giving a talk on behalf of the Indonesian government on waste minimization and go green. Then the Indonesian businessman told me, oh, don't worry. Here in Indonesia, we don't need to worry about doing all of this. In Europe, it costs you money to get rid of your waste. Here, we can do it free of charge. But then I told them, hey, guys, if you manufacture waste, it costs you money to buy the raw material. It costs you money to run the machines. You are paying employees to manufacture waste. Cannot be good. So it's good to go green step by step. And then the cab driver told me, yeah, that is actually sikit-sikit, lama-lama jadi bukit. So thanks to the Malaysian cab driver, I had a little bit of an enlightenment from that conversation. We need to put the business case at the front and center of anything we do. Because if we have a strong business case, then we will have the motivation to scale this up and make it happen, not just to be in compliance, but to go much further. And after me, the speaker, Mr. Ganesan from HeveaBoard, I'm not sure whether I pronounced the name correctly, you will hear exactly about that. How a local company turned sustainability, go green, and ESG into a super strong business advantage. Now, normally this should all be fairly straightforward, right? We look after the forest, we look after the planet, we look after the people, and we get a good performance economically and as well for our sales, for our products. And this is my number one tip when you look at ESG and sustainability. First, have a conversation with your customer. What do you want us to do? You are selling a product to the customer. What can our product do for you to help you achieve your ESG targets? Once you have established that interconnection, you are going to have a big business case. Here are some of the typical things that we would say you would get from doing all of this ESG and sustainability stuff. Reduced supply chain risk, increased growth, increased profitability. If you are reducing your power consumption, your fuel consumption, you are reducing your cost of operation. And reduced demand risk. Just yesterday, the New York Times was running a huge article about recreational vehicles, the love of the North Americans, these trailer homes that they live in. Apparently, most of the biggest brands have sourced illegal timber from Indonesia. This is all over the news globally at the moment. And they are naming those famous North American companies that have sourced non-certified timber from Indonesia. They even identify the areas where peat forests and rainforests had been chopped down. They're identifying the local suppliers that then sent the plywood to North America for specific use in RV recreational vehicles. Now there is, egg on their face all over the place. And, the brand reputation of those large companies that have billion-dollar turnover is going down the drain. So this is all serious risk, and the opposite of risk is an opportunity. If you have all of this in place, then you have a competitive advantage. And we will see exactly that with Ganesan later, the case study. That was their main driver, get the competitive advantage. Now, the sustainability reporting and ESG landscape confuses people because there are too many standards out there, too many different things. Don't worry about all of these acronyms. Don't worry about all of these standards. The two ones that are really important is GRI, Global Reporting Initiative, and IFRS. And now IFRS is becoming the global framework. This is what Malaysia has adopted already. Bursa and the Malaysian government are pushing this. So don't worry too much about all of these things that are there. And the main focus of IFRS S1 and S2 is risks and opportunities that have a financial impact to your business. This is what you can focus on. Business case, social and environmental issues, and later on I show you some examples. Here you can see how it actually is supposed to be approaching you and your business. What is the risk over the short, medium, and long term for your business? And then what is the opportunity, the financially material opportunity? Most people say, I do ESG because I do CSR, but that's not correct as a statement. CSR is often externally focused. You give money to a good local cause. This can be part of ESG. ESG is your core business, your product, your service, what you're doing with the land, with the forest, with the local community. A lot of that is already covered in your certification. One big mega trend that we see out there is the net zero targets that people are setting. This is the framework from something called SBTI, Science-Based Targets Initiative. To avoid greenwashing, people have to set year-on-year targets. And they have to set these targets in such a way that you want to go net zero. Now, you cannot eliminate 100% of your emissions, but you should be latest by 2050 as close to net zero as possible. But you need those intermediate steps. Sikit-sikit, lama-lama jadi bukit. Again, now what does that mean in practice? Even Malaysian players, here's a plantation example, SD Guthrie, they've already launched their Beyond Zero framework. They are saying they will be net zero by 2050 latest, including their value chain. That means their suppliers. And they will improve biodiversity. They will try and have zero harm to the planet and zero harm to the local community and increase the livelihood opportunities. This is what Malaysian companies are doing. Another example, Microsoft, carbon negative already by 2030. This includes their supply chain. So whatever is politically happening out there in North America, where some people even saying climate change doesn't exist, these guys are still clinging on to their clear roadmaps. Here is what they're planning to do. The dotted line is their net carbon emissions. They plan to be, despite AI data centers are pushing up CO2 emissions significantly, but they are working on that with their suppliers. If you are supplying to Microsoft, you better be net zero or better, because otherwise you have a competitive disadvantage. So initially they focused on avoiding emissions. Now increasingly they are moving for carbon removal, but they are sticking to their net zero plan. This is just a little bit of background on this thing, scope 1, your direct emissions, your fuel, the fuel of the vehicles or the tractors or the heavy equipment that you're using in your plantation, the fuel that you're using, the diesel genset in your sawmill or in your production plant. Scope 2 is the electricity that you're getting from TNB or from the other suppliers. And scope 3 is everything else. The products that you're buying, your outsourced transportation, even your products being used by your customers. And that is where we will have a gigantic business opportunity. Because the carbon that is in your products is the big opportunity here. Now, carbon capture and removal, some people will do it with technology, but that's going to be very, very expensive. But if we do it through forest restoration, through reforestation, through plantation, we are storing the carbon in the tree as a biomass. And if we then even mineralize that carbon, you might have heard of biochar. This is one of the big new mega trends here. Now, a quiz question for you guys, and all of those that answer this question somewhere close to reality What is the carbon footprint of cement per ton of clinker? This is actually the big opportunity for anything made of forest-based products, certified forest-based products. Can anyone here answer me that question in the chat box? If you answer it close to correct, I will send you a copy of my book that I wrote 10 years ago in PDF form, The Green Man's Guide to Green Living and Working. And you will get a little goodie bag from Dr. Farah and Enlin sent to your place or for pickup at MTCC next time you're in KL. What is the average carbon footprint of cement clinker per ton of cement? Anyone that can give it a shot and try and come up with the answer. Okay, we have here Ariza, 6 to 8%. This is actually correct. Cement is responsible for 6 to 8% of the world's CO2 emissions. And I think Richard here and Wong Kar Wei, yeah, it is, I think you guys are now starting to ask ChatGPT, right? Yes, the global CO2 emissions is 8%, and the average CO2 emission per ton of cement. So maybe Enlin, you can have all of these people there. They get my booklet. And actually, the best correct answer that was given very fast was from Wong Kar Wei. Wong Kar Wei, this 1 ton of cement clinker is about 0.8 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. And you know what? The banks and the companies are starting to look into that. I will show you what CIMB actually thinks of that. CIMB, in a minute, I will send you the figure, but here Microsoft is using timber as well to reduce the carbon footprint. And they are saying this year, data centers. I know from international architectural firms that are operating in Southeast Asia, Microsoft and the American big players have already asked the local partners who are going to build these data centers, can you use timber construction in Malaysia for our data center? But is the market ready? That is the question. We saw earlier from Wikkie, the presentation, the Nanyang Technical University brought in all of the mass timber material, PEFC certified, 13,000 cubic meter from Europe. And I've been asked in the past by European players, why is Malaysia and Indonesia not yet supplying mass timber at scale to the market? The demand is going to only increase. Data centers would love to use it, but are the building codes and the supply part ready to make this happen? The demand is definitely there. And they are purchasing carbon removal credits from bio-based materials already big time. And this company here is from South America. You look at the video, they have forestry chain of custody and certification to the national standard in their country in South America. So they are using the MTCC equivalent framework to show the quality and the reliability and the credibility of the raw material that they are sourcing. We can send you the video, but when you see that, you see this is exactly what MTCC and PEFC stand for, the credibility of your raw material. Even Google is buying into this type of carbon removal credits. This is what CIMB is telling the industry in Malaysia, charting a course to decarbonizing. Why is CIMB getting involved in the game? Because CIMB's biggest carbon footprint is not the electricity they're consuming from TNB in the buildings in central KL or in their branches all around Malaysia. That is the sikit part, their carbon footprint. The big part is their financed emissions. They are giving money to projects, to new developments, to construction, to cement companies, to real estate developers. They want to now see decarbonization happening with their clients, with their projects. They are establishing 2030 targets, not 2050. 2050 is too far out. This is starting to kick in Malaysia. You can see here that the current status of cement is about 0.72. That was very close to the answer, 0.8. Ton of CO2e, E means equivalent. We are converting all of emissions. Why is that so high? Because we are burning limestone, CaCO3, calcium carbonate. What happens with the carbonate at 1,500 Celsius, where we need loads of coal or refuse-derived fuel? The carbonate gets released as CO2. So cement production is gigantic in its carbon footprint. The other answer was correct as well. It's about 6 to 8% of the world's CO2 emission. And CIMB is telling industry you should achieve 0.46 by 2030. This is a very tall order. I chaired an ESG conference for the construction sector last year. Keynote speaker was YTL. They are currently around that figure. You can read that in their sustainability report. I asked them, is this realistic for them? They have a lot of net zero things in place. But nothing can beat mass timber or timber-based products. We will look at that in a minute. Even for palm oil and power. And here is an interesting one. This is CIMB's target for real estate. So currently, a commercial building in average might consume 117 kilogram of carbon dioxide equivalent per square meter per year, but the target for 2030 should be 77. So as well, aggressive reduction for real estate. So you heard earlier on as well from Wikkie in her presentation, a lot of the green building standards are already giving you points for PEFC certification. This will become even more important, and in the future as well, it will be the carbon footprint of the product that might decide who gets the business. Here is an example from the country I live in now. The biggest carbon footprint of Ayala land and their projects is by far their purchased goods and services. What is included in that? It's the cement and the steel, concrete, and the steel bars that they are using for their projects. This is the big one. They now need to look at how can they reduce it. When I met Esther Ann from Singapore, Capital and Development, she's one of the most famous ESG sustainability reporting gurus. When I met her at the COP meeting in Dubai, she said, Matthias, I made a deal with the banks. My interest rates are going to be related to the carbon footprint reduction of new build and refurbishment. Where can I get low carbon cement? Where can I get low carbon steel? And very soon it will be, where can I get mass timber, cross-laminated timber, or other timber products to decarbonize my project or my refurbishment? Keppel as well here, their scope 3 emissions are far higher. Their purchased goods and services and the use of sold products, the use of the infrastructure that they are building is part of the scope 3 carbon footprint. Now, when we look at a cubic meter of wood, the carbon that's stored in a cubic meter of wood is in average 0.9 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. And we can avoid the carbon that would be emitted. So this was actually the answer that Mitch was giving earlier on. For 1 cubic meter of wood, we can actually save about 2 tons of CO2 equivalent. This is amazing when you scale that up. So how are in the future buyers going to decide on what product they will use? Here we have so-called environmental product declarations. You can self-declare, but usually there's a third-party assessment done. We will see later on in the example of a HeveaBoard from Ganesan. They have actually done a product carbon footprint, CDF. This is done against the standard ISO 14067. If you look at your organization and you want to measure the carbon footprint of your organization, you look at the ISO standard 14064. But 67 is the product one. And there is a huge benefit doing this for wood-based products, because there is a huge gain when you look at the carbon that is sequestered. Okay, your next quiz question. Again, an opportunity for you to win a little prize. What is the conversion factor to express the CO2 equivalent that was sequestered by your trees based on the weight of the biogenic carbon in your tree? Let's say your tree is 1 ton, your moisture content is 10%, so the mass of the tree is 900 kilos. When we calculate the biogenic carbon stored in a wood-based material, the average percentage is 50%. So out of those 1,000 kilogram minus moisture content, 900, half of that is biogenic carbon, 450. What is the conversion factor that you now need to use to convert that into CO2 that was sequestered? We all remember photosynthesis, right? We learned that in school. That's the basis of life. The trees, the green leaves, they take in the CO2, they churn out the oxygen, they breathe, and the carbon becomes part of the mass of the weight. So we have already, hey, Tracy Tey, you are spot on. How come you know that so fast? Was it you or was it ChatGPT? No, excellent. I think it must have been you. This is correct. And this is amazing. When you convert your biogenic carbon, in our example, it was 450 kilogram of weight of the tree is biogenic carbon. You multiply that with 3.67. Can someone do it on their calculator, please? 450 kilogram multiplied with 3.67, it should be 1,700 kilograms. So Tracy Tey definitely deserves a big goodie bag from MTCC, because spot on. Why is it that factor? Because when you remember back your chemistry lessons in school, most of us didn't pay much attention because we didn't like chemistry so much. But we actually have a CO2 molecule, 1 carbon atom and 2 oxygen atoms. It has a stoichiometric weight of 44. And 1 carbon atom has a weight of 10. You divide 44 by 10, you get 3.67. So 3.67 times more weight of carbon dioxide was sequestered than the carbon you have in your tree. Isn't that amazing? And this is the power of decarbonization strategies that are out there. It is the biggest business opportunity for any forestry-based certified product that is out there. And I'll show you some practical examples here. This is data that some US guys came up with. Framing lumber, sawn timber, no big modification needed. It actually is a carbon storage product. The CO2 net carbon emission is negative. So a customer who uses it can subtract from their CO2. Cross-laminated timber is still negative, but less, because you're actually, in some cases, you need to dry the wood, some kiln drying, but you need to glue it. So there's some glue involved, there's some manufacturing involved. So this has to be subtracted, actually. And Richard is asking the question, what is the species of these trees? You are right. It might depend on the species, but this is a generic example. Actually, the European standards for wood assume that 50% of any wood species is biogenic carbon, minus the moisture content. I did a project in Dubai with the fronds from the date palm trees. We used them. There it's 52%. But the approximation is generically for any type of wood species, use 50% of the weight of the material, that's your biogenic carbon. Multiply it with 3.67, and then you get the carbon that was sequestered. And this you can use as a negative. So here, steel, cement, and even more, the steel that comes from a blast furnace. You know, blast furnace, we use iron ore, we need very high temperatures, we have a lot of waste. That is the virgin steel, the highest carbon footprint. The recycled steel, the electric arc furnace, is better, is lower. If you power that with renewable energy, it can go even further down, but nothing can compare with timber-based product. Nothing can beat timber-based products. This is the big opportunity out there. Here are some environmental product declarations for sawn timber, finger jointed, CLT rib panels. You see, if you have structural sawn timber or finger joints, your carbon footprint is super low, negative global warming potential, because you don't have a lot of production carbon footprint. But here for CLT, GLT, you still have a kind of negative carbon footprint. So glulam as well from the Rubner group down there. So this is the big opportunity. Here's an example as well for packaging. This is the Japanese beverage company Asahi. They identified as well that their packaging, their cartoon, their plastic bottle, the steel cans, the aluminum cans, they were the biggest contributor to their Scope 3 carbon footprint. So they have already been starting to work on this as part of their net zero roadmap that they have for themselves. So here, Scope 3 Category 1 packaging is their highest contribution to their overall carbon footprint. So they are working with their packaging companies to reduce that carbon footprint. That is the other beauty of some of these developments. They are even helping their packaging suppliers financially with investment into some new machinery. And usually you get a longer term contract if you are focusing on decarbonization with your big customer. Here is another example, Estrella Damm as well, a Spanish drinks company. They have as well switched to PEFC certified natural and renewable fiber, both to be protected in terms of reputational issues, but as well to decarbonize their packaging even more. So what can we do in terms of net zero here in our industry? We can try and make our operations lower carbon. We can focus on climate positive land use. That is when we absorb more CO2 through our trees and our biodiversity of land use. We can focus on circularity. This is another huge advantage of wood-based products. They are easier to recycle and to reuse. Concrete, you cannot take the pieces apart and reuse them. You need to crush it and then turn it into aggregate again. There's a lot of transportation and carbon emissions involved in that process. So wood-based products have a usually good end of life and reusability, especially sawn timber, where you haven't used any chemicals for durability, is beautiful circularity product. So innovation plays into this as well. Where is the ROI? Here are two examples of two companies. You know, why do investors consider ESG in their investments? Because of the input costs, supply chain reliability, the innovation. That is how ESG started initially. Investors wanted to reduce the investment risk. They wanted to make sure they pick the stocks that are listed at the stock exchange that have lower risk of something going wrong, because if something goes wrong, the share price goes down. But if we look at the right-hand side, 5 ways ESG creates value for companies. Hiring and retaining of top talent. I see that here in the Philippines. The biggest growth industry is business process outsourcing, and they're struggling to retain the talent because the talent can move easily to the next company very, very fast. So if you are focusing on employee wellness, good working conditions, productivity, then that usually helps. Investment opportunities. You know, some of the biggest successes, even of Malaysian companies, I still remember a factory in the forest in Penang. I can't remember the name, but this was actually a factory that was green building certified. Maybe my brother Mitch remembers that. And I mean here brother in a philosophical sense. We have both the same surname, Gelber, but this is the only Gelber I've ever met anywhere in my whole life outside of my kampung in Germany. My kampung, 50% of the population is either Gelber or Deal, more than 50%. But the only guy I've ever met outside of my kampung with the same surname is Mitch. So Mitch, looking forward to your presentation later on. And this factory in the forest in Penang was sold for a huge premium to a European investor. We heard that earlier on from Wikkie. You know, paving in the forest. Architects are increasingly keen to bring the forest into the buildings. Use wood and natural materials. This is called biophilic architecture. Some of the biggest media attention that we can get when we look at construction and real estate comes from something iconic like the Nanyang Technical University building as timber. Or remember that building in Italy that has a lot of trees on the balconies of the building, and it looks a little bit like a forest. The social media sharing of that case study is all over the place. But if you do sustainability right, and we will hear that from Ganesan in the next presentation, you will reduce your costs and you will increase your revenue because your products and the aspects of your business, reputational-wise and performance-wise, such as carbon footprint, will increase your competitive advantage. In Europe, some construction projects, it's not the price or quality that now gives the edge because people are quoting different things. It is sometimes the carbon footprint that is then the third thing on the agenda that gives the edge who actually gets the project. So revenue growth is a huge opportunity with this. If you are looking at ESG, start looking at it as a business development opportunity. Don't start necessarily with getting bogged down with ESG reporting standards. Make an evaluation, your customers that you have or that you would like to have, what are their sustainability and ESG criteria? If you want to supply to IKEA, look at their sustainability report. What are they looking for from their customers? Talk with your customers or with your target customers, procurement and sustainability department. The procurement guy that you're dealing with might not yet have the full picture. Try and get an appointment with the sustainability person. If you've lost a big customer to competition, to Indonesia or Vietnam, you're a furniture manufacturer, you've lost some deals to Vietnam, speak to the buyer. Ask the buyer, how can I deliver you sustainability impacts that will help you to look good in front of your end customers in Europe or North America? How can I help you avoid the risks with PEFC certification? And how can I enhance the value that I'm giving to you as your supplier? Make it a competitive advantage. That should be the starting point. Once you have that business case, then you're in business. Then the reporting becomes easily. And when we had the preparation meeting for this event, we listened to Ganesan's story. That is exactly what happened in their case. It becomes a competitive advantage. You listen later on to the other case studies that are coming from residential and construction of glulam here in Malaysia. Listen to Mitch with all the case studies and trends. This is where the big business opportunities are. Just to give you a different angle of an example, this is an Australian company, New Forest. They are not a very old company. I think they're only 10 years old, but they have already more than 11 billion of Australian dollars in their as assets. What are they doing? They are telling their investors, we are the guys that are going to manage forests with maximum environmental and social return for you. Give us your money. When you park your money with us, we will deliver you the stories, how much carbon we are sequestering, how much jobs we are creating for the local kampung people, how we are looking after the underprivileged communities. This is what we are doing for you. So it's shifting from managing risk to what is your positive impact story? What are you delivering? Here, we are drawing on financial capital, social capital, natural capital, and then we create all these beautiful positive impacts. We are delivering outcomes. We are delivering enhanced brand and reputation, strong relationship with our stakeholders, sequestered carbon, biodiversity, more happy and satisfied employees. This is what people are looking for. This is what investors want. There's a lot of ESG investment funds there that are still looking for, where shall we invest? I had an ESG investment fund manager approach me here in the Philippines. He said, I want to invest in low-cost housing, but I don't just want the same old thing. Concrete, solar on top, and then it looks like, the industrial housing that we have seen in Europe in the late 40s. I don't want that. I want the living and breathing community. I want biodiversity. Can they use wood to decarbonize the buildings, at least for the cladding or for the decking and for the furniture, for the interior? That's how we start. I want a real project that makes a real sustainable impact, not just ticks one or two boxes. This needs to be holistic. These guys talk about shared prosperity. Look there, their first metric under nature-based solution, total carbon stored in our production forest. That is the metric that they are using and going out there. So if you are a forest management unit that is certified with MTCC, that should be the first metric that you should be telling out there. This is the positive impact we have. We are storing in total so much carbon in our biomass, in our forest. We have conservation areas. We have biodiversity. This is so many species that we are actually detecting in the conservation areas and in our plantations. Good news stories, and their circular bioeconomy area of certified forest management. This is a metric as well in there. And look there, their target is 100%. So for the year 24, they have shifted from 98, which was the previous year, to 99.7. So for them, it is very clear. This is about governance. This is about managing the risk and maximizing the opportunities. You need to be running a certified plantation, a certified sawmill, a production of furniture that sources from certified timber. And they are now even saying, invest in a nature positive future. This is the biggest challenge the world has. We need to preserve the biodiversity. Give us your money and we will make it happen to deliver those positive impacts. Here you see their material ESG issues, double materiality, health and safety, forest health. We need to avoid deforestation, financial performance, governance, land rights, carbon, stakeholder engagement. A lot of these things we heard earlier on from Wikkie covered under your PEFC certification as key issues already. Here's another example. I'll just leave that in. We won't have the time to look at that in too much detail, but you will have that when you watch the video again, or you see the slides. You know, local economies, land use change, all these things, key issues that are covered, protection of land under your certification. Now, if we look at the total components of what we are looking at here, you know, the certified forest, the logs, the plywood, the veneer, the paper, the packaging, doors, all of it can be part of your chain of custody, can be part of where you are looking at the new ESG opportunities. If you have 100% certified raw material, then you already tick the box. But then the next stage is, how much is this contributing to decarbonization of your customers? And how much is it reusable at the end of life? Because the longer we keep the biogenic carbon in use, the longer it becomes a carbon sink. For wood-based products in Europe, the time scale is 30 years. If your sawn timber, if your plywood, if your logs are being used in a construction project for 30 years, then it's considered a carbon sink. Because 30 years down the line, we have 2055, the real target for the survival of the human species and our assets on this planet, it's not even about saving the planet. Will our assets, will the old town of Malacca and Penang survive or not? That question will be answered by 2050. So the more we lock the carbon in for long-term usage, the more we are contributing to that. We want to move from just doing a little bit of less negative impact, going green, doing less damage, to restorative, regenerative. If you can, with your business, deliver more regeneration and positive society and environmental impact, then you are what ESG funds and customers are looking for. So focus on the positive impact that your products and your FMU is delivering. I went to a FMU in Sabah. This was exactly their story. And they had investors from Germany who liked the idea of investing in a reforestation that has very, very strong governance, certification, and actually delivers a positive social and environmental impact, a regenerative impact. This is an example of small diameter, low value timber in Finland being used for the decking and the cladding of a famous iconic building, Lolu. I've had lunch there myself. When we had the meeting to prepare for this, afterwards I had a chat with Mitch, and we discussed about, in the past, the industry has been able to do something, and Mitch mentioned that name, gold mining. Extracting high-value trees from the forest and selling them for big margins. Those days are over. We need to become regenerative contributors. We need to use everything from the tree, even the sapwood, the small diameter wood, and transform it into high-value products. Then we are truly regenerative. We need to bring innovation into our industry. And when we look at where we are, most of us are mitigating the risks. We are on the back foot. Some companies are even denying or just complying. And this was the question that was asked earlier. You know, we cannot regulate everything. When you introduce more requirements, more regulation, people see it as a cost of doing business. They are then, the finance director will say, oh, we need to hire more consultants to do the reports. It costs us so much money. But if we are increasing our sales, or we attract more investments, because we become a champion of regeneration, a champion of positive social and environmental impact, then we are shifting from the risk to the opportunity and to the ultimate goal of being a contributor. We don't just want to have a short-term horizon. We need to think long-term. And the contracts that you might get or the investment, when you are a positive impact champion, are usually much longer term. You shouldn't just focus on shareholder value only, making maximum money at whatever costs. Focus on shareholder and other stakeholders. Then you will have a lot more positive impact stories to tell. Don't just focus inside out, but look at both ways. Ask your customers, read their sustainability reports, and calibrate your strategy. Be as transparent as possible. Look for long-term shared destiny relationships. If you want to become a supplier to certain companies that have those ESG requirements, it will be a long-term shared destiny where you are defining your carbon and social impact metrics. You are looking at extensive collaboration, and your business model is not just a linear, we make, waste, but we move more and more towards circularity economy. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about us humans, about life, about biodiversity. This is my youngest daughter 3 months ago when she was walking for the first time. This is my mother in the background, living with us here in the Philippines, sharing the joy of life. Yes, this is about business as well. And my number one recommendation for all of you, when you look at starting ESG, when you look at starting ESG reporting, don't get stuck in the metrics and, oh, what format do we need to follow? Start off with, where is the business opportunity for us? What do our customers want? Where can we innovate? And then when you're doing that, people get excited. You get other middle managers or employees that will collaborate. But we need to shift a gear, up the ante. The days are gone that we can just harvest and make big bucks from what Mother Nature delivered over thousands of years for us. We now need to reforest, replant, innovate, and develop the products of the future. And we have the biggest asset, Mother Nature's biogenic carbon that sequestered the CO2 and turned it into our products. No other raw material can compete that asset. So in the spirit of sikit-sikit, lama-lama, jadi bukit, grab this opportunity. It is a huge one. Thank you.
Thank you for your wonderful. Sorry, I'm hearing an echo from my end. Thank you for your wonderful insights, Matthias. We have some questions in the chat box and the Q&A section. I will read out some that is directed for you to answer. We have Osman again in the Q&A panel. How can an integrated government-backed ESG innovation strategy, leveraging our MTCS or PEFC certification, be designed to create a virtuous cycle where it not only enhances community socio-economic well-being and improves industry profitability, but also generates new revenue streams for the government? Matthias, if you can share your input, I would also like to open this question to other panelists if you have more input to share. So Matthias?
Yeah, I like your framing of ESG innovation strategy, Othman. This is a very nice way of putting it. And we need to do that at the macro scale, at the government scale, because some of these things that are required, like cross-laminated timber, it's economies of scale. You need to have huge volume. And the Singapore government, BCA, they have already framed a study which Professor Shinya from NUS was involved in crafting. I think he might even be involved in doing some of the research, which is all about where can the Singapore government and the Singapore private sector source mass timber components in the region. And they are here looking at Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam. Those are the countries they are looking at. And obviously, Malaysia and Indonesia could be the front runners in terms of land and plantation. But Vietnam, I think, and Thailand have done a lot of forests as well, replantation. But they are actively looking, where can we source what we need today and tomorrow from the neighboring countries? And what are the technical specs that we need? Because normally mass timber is spruce, pine, and fir, density of about 500, certain mechanical properties. Mitch might have more insight on that than me, but this is something where the industry needs to come together and look at, where is the raw material that we can use. And Ganesan was actually as well in our pre-discussion saying there are already limitations on the raw material. The governments, when I was in Sarawak, I saw that, and Sabah, I think the money that the government is making from forestry is going down. Because we are now in that phase where, no more chopping of large existing biodiverse forests and plantation. But the plantations take time. And then, what is the margin that we can make from it? So we need to look at higher value products. And this is, I agree, there should be the strategic approach from the government. There are, I remember 10 years ago when I was still living in Malaysia, there was a macro study done on biomass waste. It mainly focused on the plantation sector. Now we need to look at all the reforestation, the timber plantations, the fast-growing species, the native and others, the biodiversity, the local community, maximum employment, maximum value jobs, not just cheap foreign labor. How can we create local? Can we recreate a smallholder revolution that the palm oil sector successfully did in terms of job creation and value creation for the economy? I saw a movement in Malaysia called Eco Malaysia, where we planted trees. I was asked by a couple of people, hey, why don't you whack the palm oil industry, green man? You are environmentalist. I'm a hardcore environmentalist, but I cannot whack the palm oil industry because it has created a lot of social and economic value for the country. And there are some bad guys, but there are a lot of good guys. So we need to support the good guys to enhance further. And we need to do the same with plantation, with forestry. We need to enhance that opportunity to generate value for the country, for the business people, and for the local community. So I fully support this. And if I can in any way contribute to some of that, I still remember I was at an event in Singapore 2 years ago, and there was the MIDA, was it MIDA, the part of the Malaysian government that was promoting investment in Malaysia and sourcing from Malaysia. And I was telling those guys, hey guys, mass timber will be a mega opportunity. There needs to be a strategic evaluation. What are the opportunities for Malaysia? I'm sure some strategic stuff has been done already, but consolidating that and making it strong and focusing on what European and especially Singapore as a local buyer is actually looking for. So then we have Peter there, CIDB, to change building standards. I think Mitch is better placed to comment on that. I remember he said there is already the laws are actually allowing it, but maybe the enforcement locally, especially with bomba and fire regulations. But I'll leave that to Mitch to answer that one.
Thank you, Matthias.
Anything else in the comments?
We will just take one more question. There are one from Richard and one from Nina that are asking almost similar theme in circular economy. So Richard asks, will ESG also reward the reuse of old materials, like repair instead of throwing away stuffs? That's the first one. Another one from Nina would be, are there emerging technologies of circular economy models that could help reduce waste and improve resource efficiency in the wood industry? Following that, how can manufacturers balance ESG goals with market competitiveness, especially in regions with limited access to certified sustainable product? In the context here, certified sustainable timber.
Yeah, I think, the last one of the things that MTCC has been recognizing and is going to push for is to increase the demand for certified timber within local parties that are procuring packaging, that are procuring timber. And I think, a certified sustainable end product, that is maybe still a gap in certain sectors in Malaysia. But the more we create demand for that with large listed companies, and some of the big listed companies in Malaysia are pushing forward with their own ESG roadmaps quite aggressively. You saw the example there of SD Guthrie. I usually ask ChatGPT and Gemini which company in Malaysia is the most proactive on procuring sustainably certified packaging material. Then I get 2 or 3 names. I look at their sustainability report. Oh, I need to talk to these guys. So the more we get demand, the more we will actually see the certified sustainable product going up because it has domestic customers. So again, this could be a strategic approach. And how can we avoid and improve the recovery? I think AI will help us a lot in the future, even at the sawmill level. Okay, maybe not with the traditional sawmills, but with high-tech arrangement to optimize the yield that we get from a tree, even how we cut it in terms of the blades or the cutting system that we use. The biomass waste, biochar is the big mega trend, or what I showed you there is the example from the lowly, where you can use small diameter timber, you firmly modify it, you densify it, and then you do an overlapping gluing, and then it actually becomes a replacement for concrete and steel, something like a glulam. Or I know a guy here in the Philippines, he actually has bamboo sourcing. Okay, I've told him already, he double dips because he sells the carbon footprint of the sequestration when the trees grow, and then he sells the end product as the carbon sink. I recommend you use the carbon that is sequestered from your trees or whatever bio-based products as the certified product footprint or the EPD competitive advantage. Getting carbon credits for forestry is not that straightforward. Costs a lot of money, but if you have the sequestered carbon in your end product, you have a huge competitive advantage. If you monetize the growing of biomass for carbon credits, then you've already sold your carbon credits to someone else. You cannot claim anymore that your product is a carbon sink. So circular economy products, yes, people, my friend, his roof here in the Philippines is recovered wood from other projects. And this is the advantage of sawn wood or cross-laminated timber. Even the speed of construction, I think Mitch has examples. People think a mass timber is more expensive, but a mass timber building can be set up in a couple of days. Tack, tack, tack. It's like IBS, what CIDB has been talking about for many, many years. Off-site, the system is ready. Tack, tack, tack. You can do it very, very fast, and you have less waste. You have, conventional construction, on the site, you have a lot of waste because you waste your cement here, you waste your aggregate there. Here, you put those components together. So, yeah, build like Lego. I think we will hear more about that later on as well in the other presentation. So if I've missed out on answering anything or you need more detail, find me for MTCC or on LinkedIn. And don't forget, sikit, lama, lama, jadi bukit.
Thank you very much, Matthias. All right. We are now at 11:15. We'll move on to Ganesan Suppiah, our representative from local listed company, HeveaBoard.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Annelyn and Dr. Farah and MTCC for inviting HeveaBoard to share our journey towards sustainability and also ESG reporting.
All right.
Can we start the slides?
Yes, I'll be sharing my screen. Just a moment. All right.
Okay, thank you, Annelyn. So HeveaBoard, basically we are located in Gemas, about 2 hours drive from Kuala Lumpur. The reason we were located in Gemas is about 30 years ago, around 50-kilometer radius of Gemas were some of the most densely cultivated rubber plantations. So we decided to set our operations, and we started our production installation of factory in 1994, and we are producing particle board and laminated particle board, mostly for the furniture industry. Okay, next. Okay, from the onset, as we were realizing that the supply of our raw materials was becoming more difficult to source, so we decided that we should actually look into other sustainability initiatives. So as you say, the Oxford Dictionary defines sustainability as the avoidance of the depletion of natural resources in order to maintain an ecological balance. So in line with that, we decided start off by sourcing raw materials from sustainable forest and legal sources. So it made sense that we should actually work towards getting our PEFC certification. In 2012, we started working on our chain of custody, and in 2013, with support from MTIB and MTCC, we concluded the certification and obtained our certificate. So this certificate actually helped us to reinforce our sustainability commitments of HeveaBoard, as well as giving us the commercial advantage by using the PEFC logo on products. And this became the preferred choice of many of our responsible consumers, mainly in countries like overseas. Can we move on? Next slide. Okay, so going on from our PEFC certification, we also decided to work towards the eco label through SIRIM, and then we got the Singapore Green Label certification and the Malaysian My Hijau certificate. Next. Again, as a culture within the local community in Gemas, we wanted to encourage as well what is sustainability and the appreciation of nature, as well as so we have conducted many activities in the local community, encouraging children to plant trees in the local parks, as well as planting trees within the vicinity of our own factory, where our staffs are very involved in planting of trees. So the idea was to get children to be more involved in tree plantation. Okay. So this is mainly just an introduction, but then I will go into some of the practical things that HeveaBoard has embarked on basically on looking at the reduction of carbon emissions. So the first thing, of course, we wanted to get ourselves a baseline or a benchmark of where we stand in terms of carbon emissions, or carbon footprint for every cubic meter of particle board we produce. So it made sense that in 2020, we decided to work towards our carbon footprint certification with the support of SIRIM and our own initiatives. We managed to achieve the certificate. So we were one of the first companies in Malaysia on the wood panel industry to be given the carbon footprint certificate. Okay. Next. Okay, so in year 2003, this was long before what ESG and carbon emissions became a very important factor. We already worked with the Malaysian Industrial Energy Efficiency Improvement Project, a project funded by the United Nations Development Fund, the Global Environmental Facility, and the Malaysian government, coordinated by Pusat Tenaga Malaysia, who are now known as the Malaysian Green Tech Corporation. The aim was to the idea of the whole program was to look at a few industries which are heavy users of energy to see how energy efficiency and energy management initiatives can help reduce the use of energy. So in our case, the aim was to replace the oil-fired thermal oil heater, which we were using a medium fuel oil to generate energy for the plant. So under the project, the government wanted to set, or rather PTM wanted to have a demonstration project. The idea of the demonstration project was to show that energy efficiency is a workable initiative, because funding for such projects from banks were a bit of a problem. So with this demonstration project showing the savings that can be achieved and the investments into this equipment, so the demonstration project was to as a success. So we were the first company, wood company in Malaysia, to sign a master services energy agreement to implement the EE project under the MIEIP. Next. Okay, so basically what we have done in lessons learned from our first factory, which we built in 1994, in 2006, we extended our factory capacity to about 4 times the capacity of the first plant. And in that, we incorporated a lot of the technologies that we learned through these projects. So we have converted our energy source for the heating is totally 100% from the wood base that is generated through the process. No use of fossil fuels, and this has given us a savings of emissions of about 21,000 tons of carbon reduction. The cost of energy generation is tremendously reduced as we are using the waste wood, and also the cost of disposal of the wood base is generated in the cost has been reduced. Okay. So just some pictures of our energy plants, which we have in Gemas. So going on from the sort of energy efficiency, we decided that we should actually have a system implemented in our factory for energy management. So we embarked on working towards the ISO 50000, which we started in 2001. The objectives, again, were to improve the energy-related performance and efficiency continuously, identify energy reduction opportunities in a more organized manner, ultimately to, of course, to safeguard our environment, produce less greenhouse gases and save energy. From MTCC, to generate 1 kilowatt hour of electricity releases about 0.774 kg of carbon in Peninsular Malaysia. In Sarawak, the figure is slightly less, mainly because the electricity is generated using hydropower. So in Peninsular, this is the figure. So the objective of having an organized system like the ISO 50000, where we have to develop a policy for more efficient use of energy. And one of the objectives was every year we should reduce our energy usage by about 2%. That's where we set our fixed targets to meet the policy. We have received data from various parts of the plant, so which we use to analyze, and we decide on how it's the most efficient way to use the energy. And we have a continuous improvement program in place. Thank you. Next. Okay. As to recognize our efforts, we were awarded the certificate, and we were also given the ASEAN Best Practices Award for Energy Management in Buildings and Industry in the year 2014. Next. Some of the projects, apart from just the use of reduction in electricity, there are also a lot of opportunities within our plant where we have a lot of waste heat being generated. This waste heat is being exhausted through our chimneys, And we decided to install what we call an absorption chiller. This absorption chiller recovers the waste heat from our stack and generates chill water for process and office cooling. And it also has given us a reduction in electricity saving, which also directly contributed the reduction of CO2 generation. This was obtained green investment tax allowance from the MTCC because the chiller has a mild hijau certificate. Next. We have also installed solar panels. This is our employees' car park that has got solar panels with about 447 kilowatt peak power. Again, solar generation contributes to the reduction of electricity generated using, using of TNB electricity. Thus, there is a contribution in CO2 reduction. Next, we also have solar roof panels on our factory rooftop, giving us about 880 kilowatt. So other sustainability measures that we are looking at is water management. Our process does require water management, and with the installation of the absorption chiller, some cooling water is necessary. So we have embarked on a system. This is just one example of what you see of how we harvest the rainwater, which is then used for our cooling towers. So practically, we do not use any of the, consume any water from the local supply. We totally use all water is recovered from the rainwater. And we have also have some deep well, we have some groundwater, which we are also in the process of now working on some wells. Okay. Okay. Of course, all these things will not be successful if we don't have the raw materials to run the operations. So the biggest challenge which we have been facing over the last 10 years is the reduction of the raw material supply. So we have found that the daily, the amount of wood that is currently available is starting to reduce. Furthermore, other new factories and other industries have also set up nearby. Therefore, the competition for the material has become intense. So we have to be very innovative in how we obtain or maximize the wood that is available within this region. So we have made a lot of massive advances in this area. I'll share with you a few examples of what we have done. So here, what you see is what we call mobile chipping. You'll see a video later, but these small branches which you see are normally left in the field and is not usable by anybody. So the most common method of disposal has been to do open burning. Next. Next one, Lee. Okay, so through this mobile chipping, we are able to chip the materials, the small branches, into a ro-ro truck, which we are then transported to our factory. Next. Okay, here we have a video. I'll show you a video of what we are doing. seem to be having a lot of. So we are the material that is now, as you can see, these small branches, we are able to recover all these that otherwise would have been left to burn in the field. Next one then. Next. Okay, so you can see from here that on the right, you see the most typical means of how they dispose of all these branches, which is through open burning. The amount of CO2 that is being emitted, the amount of smoke, and causing a lot of damage to the environment. Of course, these are all controlled now, but this used to be the way how a lot of the disposal used to be done. But on the left, you can see after we use our mobile chipping method, we leave the field clean so that the next process can immediately take place without any damage to the environment. Next one. Okay, another source of the material which is also left in the wood and very difficult to process is the wood stumps, basically the roots. So this is a real challenge to how we can process this, because the roots are very difficult. They entangle in the machines. They contain a lot of sand and stones. So, however, it is a very good source of material that is being left to waste. So we use this material. The next one, Lynn. We'll show you a video of how we are able to process this material. Okay, I hope the video was clear. So what you can see is previously, I mean, in a typical plantations, the most amount of wood probably we can recover is about 70%. The other 30%, which is the stumps as well as small branches, is normally left behind in the plantation and other means of disposal. So with our system, we are able to increase the plantation by another 20%. What is left behind is mostly the small branches and leaves which act as a compost. The plantation is cleared very fast and ready for replanting. We do not leave any waste behind for disposal. No pollution or damage to air quality. No distress to animals or the wildlife. And also there's some additional income for the plantation owners or smallholders who are able to sell these waste wood to companies like HeveaBoard. Then, of course, one of the main advantages is the reduction of CO2 emissions from the burning. So a normal recovery from small is about 35 tons an acre. Now I think we are able to increase more. So with the use of the mobile chipper, we can recover another 20%. So in all, if you look at the calculations, we are able to save about 2,300 tons of CO2 per month, right? So this is a tremendous advantage. So next one, please. So basically, in any operation like what we have in HeveaBoard, there are numerous ways and means to achieve sustainability. Firstly, procure wood from sustainable legal sources, comply to the certification like PEFC, maximize the source of raw material, minimize waste by mobile chipping, or invest in renewable energy like biomass fuels, solar PV, reduction and in waste recovery like the absorption chiller, and have a very how shall I say, a very rigid energy efficiency program. There are a lot of new systems available in the market, so that it's continuously improving in this area of how we manage our energy efficiency. Next. So coming to the main topic, why is ESG important in HeveaBoard? Of course, we have started more than 20 years ago looking at sustainability and other means of energy reduction, raw material sourcing. But besides, we Versa compliance tool is using ESG's sustainable goals. We set targets within the organization to all the various levels of employees to look at ways and means how we can improvements. So through implementing a ESG framework, we're able to engage Are we still on?
Hello.
Are you
Anyone
sharing
hear me?
the screen?
Yes. So sorry about that. Everyone, please
No
bear
problem.
with us. All right,
No
let me
worries.
reshare the screen again. Okay, thank you everyone for bearing with us. All right.
Okay. So as I was saying, we use this ESG framework to set goals within the organization. There are numerous ways of how we have to engage with our employees to look at the benefits of what ESG can give us. And it creates an awareness and create an appreciation among our employees to show more care towards the environment. Next. Okay, so over the years, our sustainability initiatives has kept us ahead of some of our competitors. To our customers, it has given them the confidence that we are a good and responsible organization, ensuring best practices. To our local community, our engagement and presence in GEMAS has provided many benefits. We employ many students and graduates as interns. We also very active in our social CSR programs, whereby just next to our factory, HeveaBoard has got another company called HeveaGrow, where we are growing mushrooms, these eringi mushrooms. We do regular contributions and donations to the local schools, the old folks' homes, through our community programs. We also have in our HeveaGrow as well as part of the sustainability, the wood bark waste that is not usable in our HeveaBoard. This is used as a substrate mixed with rice husk and corn as to grow the mushrooms. After the mushrooms have been harvested, this substrate is then used as compost. So almost 100% of what we do is not wasted. So this is some of the programs which we do. We welcome a lot of students and visit our factory, support local schools, and especially in their science activities. To our employees, we provide them a security that we are a stable and secure company that provides them with a safe working environment. Next. So what are the challenges in implementing ESG or sustainability programs? Of course, the main challenge we found out is to identify the goals, and especially related to the environment. So how the method in which we try to identify is through our materiality assessment process, which is a fundamental component of our sustainability strategy. We create awareness and provide training to our employees to embrace good practices. We gather the necessary data for the reporting, and we do regular analysis and monitoring of the data to ensure continuous improvement to meet our targets. We have set up, we have after the assessment is done, to ensure we effectively prioritize the ESG issue most relevant to our current business and stakeholders. To ensure more participation, we have set up a sustainability committee headed by a sustainability officer who reports to the group managing director. The members of the committee are from all departments within the company. We try to get everybody involved. Tasks are assigned to members to give suggestions and improvements and gather data, and we regularly review this information to come up with new ideas and new methods of how we can further continue. So it is a long journey. It has not stopped. We have been continuously, every year we have small projects. Like I said, it doesn't matter whether we just change one bulb from a normal bulb to LED. It may seem very small, the saving, but all these add up. So it is more of a culture rather than actually, looking at, we try to get the low-hanging fruits first. And eventually, some of these are no-cost measures, low-cost measures, and high-cost. So we look at a true spectrum of the whole of the operations in the plant. And we are still continuously looking at other means of how we can be more sustainable. As we can see, the challenges in our industry is tremendous. If we do not start on something like this, I think the journey is going to come to a very abrupt end. So with that, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ganesan. We had a few hiccups earlier. Thank you, everyone, for pulling through with us. All right. For the interest of time, we will not answer any question at this point. We will take the questions to the end. Just before we move on to Mitch to share more about sustainability in the built environment, let me just quickly play the video that we didn't get to watch together earlier from Wikkie. So after this video, then we will move to Mitch's presentation. All right, up next we have Mitch to share with us. Okay, just to recap and reintroduce Mitch, in case some of you have joined us later before we had our introduction this morning. So Mitch is the CEO of the Malaysian Green Building Council. He has been living in Malaysia since 2007. His hometown is actually Malacca. He has spent over a decade certifying green buildings, and helping shape national sustainability policies. And he enjoys contributing to webinars that include more than one Gelber. All right, so Mitch will be sharing with us sustainability in the built environment. I'll stop my screen sharing and pass it over to you, Mitch.
Thanks, Edmund. And thank you to MTCC for having me here this morning. Let me see if I can get my slides up. Looks okay. Excellent. So thanks for having me this morning. I'm going to share quickly a little bit about the Malaysia Green Building Council. Wikkie mentioned during the first session this morning the World Green Building Council. Malaysia Green Building Council is Malaysia's member of the World Green Building Council. We're a nonprofit association that is about 18 years old, and we are membership based. We have 750 over individual members, mostly professional architects, engineers, corporates, academics, developers, contractors. We also have about 150 plus companies and organizations that work with the council and contribute to the council's activities as members. Wikkie mentioned the World Green Building Council. The World Green Building Council is a global action network of local green building councils. There are 80 countries around the world that have a green building council operating, and our councils work independently because each country's climate is different, each country's construction industry is different, each country's culture is different. And we all approach issues of sustainability in a way that is reflective and responsive to our differences. And our differences when we deal with sustainability and sustainable solutions are critical, because the solutions we come up with in Malaysia are simply not possible in a country like Singapore, and vice versa. Singaporean solutions are geared towards Singaporean problems. Malaysian solutions are geared towards Malaysian problems. And that's true for every country around the world. The core impact of our network is learning from one another, learning what solutions can be applied, what solutions can be inspirational, and how we can all work collaboratively to move forward in a positive, constructive direction. So within Malaysia, our council is set up as a multi-stakeholder organization. We have manufacturers, contractors, property developers, specialists and professionals and academics, all working towards the common goal of promoting sustainability for Malaysia's built environments. And this multi-stakeholder engagement is essential to the work that we do, because we don't represent a single interest, a single viewpoint, a single commercial imperative or objective. We represent sustainability, and we work towards these problems collaboratively from a collective approach that is beneficial for the country, not a single stakeholder within Malaysia. Solutions that don't benefit just a single group of Malaysians, but all Malaysians. Our core pillars that we address are climate action, resources circularity, and resilience. And I'll go through each of these quickly in a little bit more detail. So under climate action, targeting zero carbon built environments, we look at energy efficiency, promoting the rapid uptake of renewable energy. I saw there's one question in the comment about solar, so maybe if I have time, I'll circle back at the end and address that question. And green mobility, looking at carbon, zero carbon transportation, like Matthias was talking about, living for 12 years in Malaysia car-free, as well as increasingly electrification of our transportation infrastructure. Under the resources circularity pillar, we look at sustainable materials. These are low carbon, low embodied emissions materials with recycled content and potential for reuse at end of life. We look at water conservation and management, and regenerative design. And regenerative design talks about a life cycle thinking approach to building and development. And I will circle back to this a little bit more as it pertains directly to the timber industry and why timber is sustainable in Malaysia and globally. And under the resilience pillar, we look at biodiversity conservation, which is land use conservation. This overlaps nicely with sustainable forestry, as well as health and well-being, healthy communities and healthy buildings, and just transition, which is really I would say the biggest growth opportunity within sustainability. Just transition refers to ensuring that sustainable solutions aren't only available to those communities that can afford it, but are available to all communities. It used to be, I think, when Matthias and I and all of us on this call started out this sustainability journey, that sustainable solutions were seen as additionalities. And increasingly, sustainable solutions, like Ganesan was talking about, are core business practices. These are intrinsic to good business practice. These are not solutions that are more expensive than business as usual. These are solutions that are more profitable than business as usual. And so as we move towards sustainable future, and these solutions become zero cost, no cost, or more profitable, it opens up incredible possibilities for how we can think about sustainable transition to in terms of social equity, low-cost housing, schools, community development projects, where these solutions are not just for high-end developments that come with a cost premium, but give impact and value enhancement to all Malaysians. So let's talk a little bit in more detail about timber. So from a built environment perspective, timber first and foremost addresses the challenge we have with embodied carbon. Matthias talked very eloquently comparing the environmental impact of concrete versus timber and construction. And most of what I'm going to be talking about today is looking at mass timber and using timber as a primary structural material for buildings. The reason being that the concrete industry alone is responsible for more than 8% of global emissions, total carbon emissions worldwide. The mitigation of these emissions require not just looking at how we can decarbonize the concrete industry, but how we can replace concrete as the primary structural system that's currently the position that it currently holds in Malaysia. The overwhelming majority of Malaysian construction in 2025 is concrete structure with a brick or infill. Replacing that concrete structure with timber has a catalyzing effect to decarbonize our built environments. And we'll look a little bit in more detail about global policy and market positioning, how these factors are converging to increase the speed of decarbonization in the construction sector. So what makes the timber industry sustainable? We have forest certifications. MTCC is at the forefront in Malaysia. We also have Wikkie talking about global standards. I'll focus more in this conversation about regenerative design, life cycle analysis, and environmental EPDs that Matthias touched on earlier. Also look at a little bit at overlap of green building ratings and how these help to generate awareness of timber construction. And then building codes and fire safety science. Timber is one of the oldest construction materials we have. There's a lot of misperceptions within Malaysia, within our BAMBA, our fire code, about timber being flammable and timber not being suitable for large-scale construction as a primary construction material. This is simply not true, and so we'll debunk some of these myths with some of the case studies coming down the line. So Matthias touched on timber as a carbon mitigating construction material. The Malaysia Green Building Council has an annual assessment for carbon emissions from buildings in Malaysia called Carbon Score. And so I'm going to use the Carbon Score framework to expand a little bit on what Matthias spoke about earlier about timber as a low carbon construction material. So the carbon score framework provides an annual assessment of what are the carbon emissions for a building for 1 year. The framework looks at both operational and embodied CO2. So the overwhelming majority of the emissions from Malaysian buildings come from operational emissions, specifically our energy consumption. Malaysia's electricity grid is about 86% fossil fuels at the moment, 15% hydro, and just about 1-2% solar as of 2025. So the overwhelming majority of our electricity generation comes from coal and gas. This translates to carbon footprint for our built environment that is about 80% from the operational carbon from our buildings. The carbon score assessment looks at this 80% from energy. It also looks at embodied carbon from the construction material, the original construction materials, as well as incremental operational emissions from water and waste. Typically for the average Malaysian building, about 1 to 2% at most of our carbon emissions come from water and waste from water used by the building, waste generated from the building. So the overwhelming majority of emissions, life cycle emissions from building in Malaysia come from operational energy use and the carbon emissions embodied in the original construction for that building. And that tallies more or less with global examples. In countries that have cleaner grids, Denmark, for example, their electricity generation is about 6 times cleaner than Malaysia's. China's is about 40% cleaner than Malaysia's. Indonesia and some of our regional partners, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, our grid emissions factor is all about equivalent. So in higher emitting countries with dirtier electricity grids, operational emissions are about 80% of the total emissions of a building over its lifespan. As the grid decarbonizes, the percentage of emissions that come from the construction materials increases. So I mentioned Denmark, about 6 times cleaner grid than Malaysia's. Embodied emissions, embodied carbon in a Danish building represent as much as 50% or more of the total emissions in that building. And so as our grid decarbonizes, and Malaysia is already taking steps to move away from fossil fuels towards solar and renewables, the importance and the impact of that embodied carbon increases. And so this, for our carbon score framework, this is the some of the basic carbon factors that we use. Matthias showed us a similar slide. You'll see the only construction material that has a 0 carbon or in fact negative carbon impact on the building's construction is timber. And I should say with the caveat, certified timber or timber that is harvested sustainably. Timber is not timber only has a 0 carbon or a negative carbon factor on construction if it's harvested from a managed forest. Timber that's taken from a primary forest, and especially in Malaysia, this is true, is a net emitter of carbon and a substantial one, because our Malaysian forests themselves have carbon sequestration. And so timber that's harvested unsustainably is a very, very powerful emitter of CO2. It's only when timber products are extracted from managed forestry that we enjoy the benefits of timber as a 0 carbon or negative carbon material. So I mentioned earlier green building certification. This is one case study of a building, the Sarawak Museum in Kuching, that's achieved credit towards its GBI certification. This project used more than 92% of the total wood-based materials in the building were certified under MTCS. And this is true not just of GBI, but of all green building ratings, both within Malaysia and internationally, that the use of certified timber is recognized as contributing to the green building certification. This is a really powerful tool in terms of awareness for sustainable construction and for timber specifically. Case studies from the expo and some mass timber projects. So I'll dive into these in a little bit more detail. We've seen a really a dramatic acceleration in construction, mid to high rise adoption in urban cores. There's been a huge uptake in regions around the world of using mass timber adapted towards large scale, even high rise construction. This is accelerated further by policy and procurement drivers. We talked a little bit earlier about EU mandatory EPD requirements. All construction materials imported into the EU as of the beginning of this year have mandatory environmental product disclosure requirements. And there are additional investor and ESG pressures that Matthias touched on. In Malaysia specifically, since the beginning of this year, Bursa has implemented mandatory sustainability reporting requirements for all listed companies. And there's a roadmap in place for this to be extended not only to large-scale listed companies, but also SMEs, private limited companies in the coming years. So this is putting a huge accelerator on the awareness, the uptake of investor-driven environmental disclosures, and awareness of how timber can contribute to environmental reporting standards. So Matthias touched on EPDs before. How timber can leverage on this is that what an environmental product declaration is a public disclosure of the environmental impact of a construction material. Think of it like when you go to the supermarket, you have the nutrient label that shows you exactly what's in the food product that you're purchasing, shows you the fat content, sodium, sugars, etc. What an EPD is a health label, for a public health label for your construction material or for any product whatsoever. But so on the bottom left of the screen, we have an example. This is a concrete product. This is the environmental impact of 1 meter cube of concrete that is affixed to that concrete and gives a public disclosure for the purchaser of what the environmental impact of that material is. So the graph on the right is the uptake of EPDs globally. And you'll notice that this progression is not a linear progression. This is exponential. So this chart ends in 2022. As of 2024, we have upwards of 40,000 EPDs globally for construction materials. So year on year, the number of EPDs that are in the market is doubling, increasing exponentially. This is seen within our membership. It used to be relatively uncommon for our manufacturers in Malaysia to have EPDs associated with their products. This is changing, and it's changing very quickly. And so as the environmental impact of construction materials and products becomes public and public disclosure, architects, engineers, building owners, developers, contractors have information and data accessible that helps them make decisions which impact the bottom line embodied carbon emissions of the building. And that transparency is critical to driving sustainable construction materials like mass timber. So we'll quickly take a look at a few case studies in a little bit more detail. I studied architecture in Vancouver, British Columbia. British Columbia has a massive timber industry, softwood timber. It's one of the, I think it's the second biggest economic driver of their province in Canada. This is a 18-story student residence at the University of British Columbia. When it was completed, it was the largest hybrid mass timber building in the world. It's proof of concept that mass timber construction can be safe, fast, and cost competitive And Matthias mentioned before the efficiencies of working with modular timber construction. This building was, the superstructure of this building was completed in just over 2 months by a construction crew that was just 9 people strong. So it shows the, we'll see the next presentation about the Lego construction, the speed, the efficiency, the modularity, the lightweight aspect of timber all contributes to lower cost. Concrete is not only a high emitting material, it is a heavy material. It requires extensive costs for transportation, for fabrication, huge amounts of energy to go into a manufacturing process. Timber competes already in 2025, 1-to-1 in terms of cost, in terms of mass structural systems and construction. Another example from Sydney is the Alassian Central. This is near their Sydney Central Rail Station. It's a 39-story commercial skyscraper. It's scheduled to be completed later this year, and on completion, it'll be the world's tallest hybrid timber steel building. It demonstrates timber's potential for super tall commercial buildings. This building has a steel exoskeleton around the outside, and you can see from the rendering on the top right, the core, the floor slabs, the partitions, and the internal structure of the building are all mass timber construction. The last case study we'll look at is Port Plus in Yokohama, Japan. It's an 11-story mixed-use full mass timber structure. When it was built in 2022, it was the tallest full mass timber structure in the world, using prefabricated cross-laminated timber panels and glulam structure. And the reason I showed this one, it's not only because of its beauty, but it shows timber's viability as a structural system in a really complicated seismic and coastal context. Yokohama is right on the ocean. It sits along the Ring of Fire. It's prone to earthquake and seismic construction. And so this building, we mentioned before about bomba and fire requirements and some of the misconceptions. So I'll take a second to maybe circle back using this building as a case study. There's a real misperception when it comes to mass timber and fire, because people think about wood and think about wood as being combustible. When we look at fire code, and this is true for not only Malaysian standards, but fire code around the world, buildings in fire code have fire rating, which is measured in hours. And basically, if you have a construction material, it'll be 1 hour rated, 2 hour rated, 4 hour rated. And these fire ratings basically give you an indication of how long the building will be standing if there's a fire that breaks out. How long will that material take before the fire compromises its structural integrity? So mass timber has a fire rating which is comparable and in many cases even greater than steel. Because what happens to steel in a fire? Steel melts. When steel reaches a certain temperature, it loses its structural integrity. Timber works differently. So when you have large-scale mass timber elements like these glulams, like CLT panels, the outside of the timber structure can burn, but the core takes hours to burn. Anyone who's gone camping and thrown a log on the fire knows that the timber doesn't just explode. The outside burns while the core of the timber keeps its structural integrity for hours. And with structural members that are the size of timber when it's used as a primary structure, that fire rating can exceed steel. So in Malaysia, we still have challenges, but the challenges are not technical challenges. The problems are mindset challenges within bomba, within building code and regulations. So I'll move quickly in the sake of time. So what are some of the key design considerations for use of mass timber in tropics? Well, I already talked about fire. Acoustics is another one because we're used to working with concrete. Timber has different acoustic properties. So the acoustic performance of the building needs to be accounted for when working with timber structure. There was a question in the chat earlier about termites. Mass timber is an industrial product. It's a product which is controlled at a factory output. And so termites can be handled through processes, filtration, etc. Just like steel, just like concrete. Timber is optimized at the factory to deal with these environmental challenges. In addition, we talked about the importance of certification. This is especially true in Malaysia and in sourced and sustainably managed. The environmental impact from timber is only gained with sustainably managed forest. And then finally, looking at procurement is critical. Government endorsement, architects, engineers, to equip the skill to adopt design. And finally, market development solutions. And increasing in Malaysia, we're seeing the adoption of green financing, green bonds, and mass timber is a very elegant straight line towards preferable loans for construction and green financing. So we'll end with, I just came back from a trip to Vancouver a few months ago. And these are, the photos are a little bit hard to read, but this is some images that I took from construction hoarding from a 12-story timber building that was going up across the street from where I was staying. So mass timber creates up to 7 times more British Columbia than milled lumber. This is because first and foremost, mass timber is a value-add product. It adds value chain and it adds value along the value chain, not just in the end building, but through the manufacturing process. It takes a raw material and adds value to that material so that it can substitute out much more expensive and costly steel on concrete construction. And the building that was going up across the street, BC Forest regrew the wood that made the building in less than 60 minutes. And so this was a 12-story building, 200 residential apartments, and the forestry regenerated that raw material in less than an hour. So the key takeaways: mass timber is a proven and scalable worldwide as a low carbon building solution. Certification and environmental disclosures are key drivers to ensure compliance in international markets. And Malaysia has a tremendous opportunity to catalyze growth. Timber future, looking at timber not just as a high value primary resource, but continually sustainable value that can reliance on concrete and higher carbon construction solutions. So with that, thanks very much. If you're not already, I encourage you to check out Malaysia Green Building Council's website. We're open to all individuals and organizations in Malaysia that are committed to sustainability and interested in promoting a more sustainable built environment for Malaysia. So please visit our website, join the council as a member, and feel free to reach out to me directly if you have any questions. Thanks very much.
Thank you for the very interesting case studies, Mitch. I'm sure that our participants have definitely learned a lot from all the examples. So next up, we have Edmund Lim from Tong Sim Wood Industry, as well as Tat Sing So we have gathered a few questions for Ganesan and also for Mitch that we will circle back later at the end of this webinar if we have some time. All right. Can I see Edmund and Tat Sing? Right, Tat Sing is on.
Hello, everyone. I'm Edmund here.
Hi, Edmund. Your video is still off for now. Would you like to switch it on?
Sure, on. Okay, on the button. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon.
All right. Okay. I will pass the floor to both of you. Okay,
Yes,
now
sure.
we can see your
Thanks, Annie.
slides. Thank you, Tat Sing.
Okay. So this will be a co-presentation between me as the design architect for this glulam house and sharing together with the owner and also the glulam specialist of the house, Edmund. So let me start with introducing the scheme, and perhaps Edmund can take over to elaborate some of the key points. So I will start with the slide. So this is who we are. We are designing. We like to approach building design in a manner that is as friendly to environment as possible or as we can manage. So we always explore interesting material and trying to look at the possibility of making it in a natural manner. So when Edmund started approaching us in year 2018-19-ish to build his house using his glulam product harvested from his plantation timber, we were really excited as this can be a good example of building with low carbon emission and with material that we can grow from earth in a sustainable manner. So let me just quickly run through the floor plan of the house. So the site is located nearby a former tin mine lake. So we have a natural environment here with a water body not far. The planning of the house is in such a way that we try to create a very open space at the ground floor, and the planning of such manner will be we have all the more common area and semi public area to be located at the ground floor, and all the bedrooms at the first floor. So this will enable us to plan the house in a more naturally ventilated manner where we can manage, where else the bedroom will have more privacy and more enclosed wall. So a quick diagram of the house can see how we place the elongated house with open area at the ground floor and more enclosed room at the first floor. And there are the lake, which is in at the back or at the front of the house, depends on how you see it. We actually draw cool air from the lake. So therefore, the planning to have a lower ground that is open air, it is very essential. So these are cut out section of the house showing how we apply double volume spaces within the important areas such as the living hall and the dining hall, and also how we use staircase. The house in various clusters. So the use of clustering, it is important where we can plan micro public space within the hood. Growing up in Terengganu, which is a very village setting. So that make our design rather easy and casual, which I will explain through some of the photo later. And this is a diagram of how the glulam timber structure incorporated with some minor concrete core. We use concrete core as a anchoring structure to strengthen the timber structure. At the same time, it is used as all the wet areas such as toilet, WC, bathroom, and water tank area. So this is the use of concrete is in a very controlled manner where you can see most of it is consisted of glulam timber. So these are some general details for the glulam structures. Okay, so these are recent photo taken from the house. As you can see on the left-hand side, there's a huge lake just next to the house. And from this view, you can see how the clustering of the house being placed so that we allow airflows. The primary glulam structure is using white seraya, whereas the 4-story high is timber structure is using green. And it is cladded with some cement fibrous board as a drywall construction to seal off the enclosure from the weather. So this is the entrance where you can see how timber columns actually articulate the space, creating empty spaces leading into a small courtyard. The main house is using portal frame construction to carve out the spaces. So this is a double volume living hall. And at the higher level, you can see how the Edmund actually smartly using the space, like using it to be his to do his star watching, and it is viewing towards the lake. And the dining hall is another interesting part of it, where you can, it is very transparent and it can be very open air if you need to. You can see the omnipresence of the spaces throughout the whole houses. There is a small attic above the staircase, which is a small office for Edmund. And you can see the dining hall all the way across, and you can see the lake behind this view. The opposite view is actually there's a room above what do you call this, at the first floor. So these are some more open lounge. So as opposed to this sofa sitting living hall, so these are rather casual. And you can see how the smaller courtyard being interplay with natural lighting and for sure natural ventilation. So the planning of this house is in such a way that, you know, the guests, the kids, or even their pet dogs, they can just run around. There's no clear boundary. So this is like a playground. Then it is very, very welcoming as a neighborhood. So in Malay, we actually call this halaman rather than rumah. So it is more than just a house. It is a whole compound, a whole settlement that you can sing in and use. So you can see how life being breathed through the spaces, you know, hammock, bicycle, raised deck. So it really captures the essence of life with the use of glulam timber. So you can see this is the walkway linking the first floor and also the the 4-story watchtower. So a close-up view of entering the tower. So these are some detail of the staircase within the tower. At the rooftop, the photo was taken during MTCC visit event. So below here, you can see how the view of the watchtower towards the lake. I mean, it feels really fulfilling when you have this view and coming all the way up to the top of the tower. So these are some other view that you're looking outside. So I will also quickly showing some photos during the assemble. So maybe Edmund, you can share with us how long does it take to assemble the main glulam structure?
For this row of structure, we have 9 portals. It took about 2 days on site for us to connect them together. And once we have all the connections done, I think it takes about 3 to 4 days to complete the first the big building on the left side. And for other smaller ones, it takes about 2 days, 3 days. So it's very simple IBS way, and it's very Lego design. You know, everything can be done on site within few days if you get it planned properly. Yeah, so as you can see, some with double column, some with single column. And we try to come up with some different design and then have a feel of it. And so far, we are quite confident that timber can be used as a structure, and it can replace steel structure as well. And these are some of the hidden joints that we use. And as you can see, the steel plates are mostly hidden inside the wood, and the base is we kind of expose it so that we can at least see whether we have any termite attack, and it's easier for us to maintain in the future.
Okay, so it's over to you, Edmund.
Okay.
Continue with your slide.
Thank you. Thank you, Tat Sing. I'd like to say thank you to MTCC for inviting us to do this presentation. And I'm Edmund Lim from Tong Sim Group. Today, I would like to share a very personal project with you all. It's White Seraya Glulam House. This house is not just a house. It's a story about my family, culture, and how we can live more sustainably in Malaysia. And these are my kids. And we would like to also demonstrate that homes can store carbon, not just consume it. And then in this case, we also make sure that, you know, the design and the house can blend into the natures and also the lakes. Next, please. And this proves that timber can be a real alternative in Malaysia. As you can see here, the front and the back view of the house. We are also very concerned about termite and also the mold issues. That's why the timber that we use in this house, they are all treated, 100% treated. And so far in the last 5 years, we don't see any issue with termite. So we'd like to also prove the concept that timber construction can be used in Malaysia. And with the right treatment, we believe timber can be safe and also durable. Next. So in this project, we use 100% certified timber. Some are recovery timber from my production. Some are timbers that we buy from Terengganu concessions, PEFC certified concession. So in this case, we believe that we store about 100 tons of carbon in the house. And also we try to showcase that, you know, we can reduce our reliance on cement and steel. Next. Okay, in this picture, I would like to show the new system that I just installed for the house. I installed a 12 kilowatt solar system, and during the end of the year, usually I don't need to use so much power because it's not so hot. But during the summer, let's say in March, my consumption is up to 1,005 for the cooler period. But when it's hot, it's up to 2,000. After I install this solar system, I bring down the cost to 300 per month. And at the same time, I'm still able to charge my EV car. And I just have to charge 1 day for me to use for 1 week. Next. So we also designed the house so that it has ponds and it have some rainwater harvesting system, so that we can use that to water the plants and trees. And the lake has plenty of water. If I need to get the water from the lake, it should be able to do it, but I couldn't do it now because it belongs to the Selangor water, Selangor Air. So I couldn't access to the lake because it's illegal to do so. Next. So as you can see, this is very open design, and I like to also, express that it's Terengganu Pavilion style elements, and also is very similar to the Chinese Siheyuan courtyard style, and is about good airflow and natural lights, and also living closer to the nature. And those birds come to my house end of the year. I believe they come from north, maybe from Vietnam or Thailand. When they come down here, they will stay for about a month or so, then they'll go back to wherever they came from. Next. Okay, climate change is real. I think the world is getting hotter, and there's no question about that. My home alone locks away around 100 tons of carbon. So imagine if more of our buildings did the same, we could really change the future for our kids. So the challenges and the key learnings from this project is that it's quite difficult for us to promote at the beginning because a lot of people don't know about glulam. They have no idea about mass timber constructions in Malaysia. In the past few years, we have been doing that. We have been seeing a lot of architects and developers to tell them what's glulam about. And also we've come across that most of the people, they have issues about fires. They worry about fire issues. They worry about termite issues. They also worry about the mold issues. These are the things that we are going to solve, especially on the fire side, together with MTC. And more R&D will be taken place. And in terms of termite, we believe we have the solution for that for Malaysian weather. The mold also can be solved. And in this current moment, we think that the certified timber products shall be promoted by authorities, especially by CIDB and GBI. Next. So the conclusion from this project is that we would like to prove that glulam timber works when it's properly designed. The cultural identity woven into a modern, efficient home. The timber construction's sequestration for the next or the future generations. So if one house like mine can sequester about 100 tons of carbon, imagine 100 houses, 1,000 buildings can do in the future. Next. And the next picture, I'd like to show the projects that I'm working with Tat Sing, that is located in KL. It's called the Glulam Timber Arch.
Yeah.
Tat Sing, would you like to share some information or designs?
So ideas? The location of this arch is in downtown KL. This area we call Chinatown. So it's fronting Jalan HS Lee. Previously, it is actually a very Chinatown temporary archway and covered. The laneway is totally covered with covered walkway, and in the last year, the City Hall and Think City worked together, trying to remove all this covered walkway and trying to actually reactivate and revitalize the laneway. And at the same time, the so-called Chinatown stereotype Chinatown archway is to be replaced with this more contemporary design with some kind of traditional timber joint in mind to symbolize the use of timber in a modern way. So we are quite happy that Edmund actually chipped in his effort by contributing by using his glulam to build this. So the fabrication is ongoing, and installation is scheduled to be started in next week. Hopefully, we can have a launch in sometime in September.
Right.
By the mayor.
Yes. And we are replacing this archway. It was a steel archway, right? I think at the beginning.
Yes.
And we are actually putting back the same name for that facade, and it's under the HSD Tan Sri HSD name. And the timber that we use is same as the house. It's white Seraya as well. And white Seraya also called Garuda Malaysia. And this timber is actually classified as non-durable by MTC and also by FRIM. But why we choose white Seraya? Because we know that once the timber is treated, it can last. So in this case, we are using a non-durable Asian hardwood. We treat it, and then we make it into glulam. And I think in the next 5-10 years, we will see what's going on with the archway. And I'm very confident that timber, this archway will be fine. The timber will be okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, so that will be the whole presentation.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much. I think that's all for our presentation.
Thank you. All right. So are there more questions from anyone that we check the chat box and our Q&A?
I think, Edmund, if you don't mind, I'll jump in to answer the question about solar quickly.
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay, sure.
So there's a question in the chat from Tracy about the end-of-life challenges with solar panels. It's a really good question. There's two main sort of comments that you hear associated with solar energy. One is the end-of-life use of the panel when they reach the end of life after 25, 30 years. The other is land use. So end of life is, should start by saying there's no human activity that has zero environmental impact. All human activity has some environmental impact whatsoever. It's a common misperception that when a solution is sustainable or green, that it has to be perfect or immaculate. Solar panels are a great example because the comparison with a solar panel is not to zero. It's to what the existing business as usual energy technologies are and have been. And so if you compare solar panels to coal, gas, fossil fuels, the environmental impact from the panel is an order of magnitude greater than fossil fuel emissions, extraction, etc. They're also cheaper. So if you look globally, according to the International Energy Agency, solar panels are the cheapest form of energy that humans have ever known in the history of humanity. They're about half the price of coal, about 40% less than oil and gas. And this is a trend that is accelerating rapidly. It's completely transforming the way that we think about and use energy globally. End of life, the panel is recyclable up to about 90% based on today's technology. So when you look at markets like France, some places in the EU, they already have very robust panel recycling businesses. These are not sort of government handouts. There's a direct value chain for recycling, repurposing the valuable elements, components that go into the solar panel, including the silica, which is the biggest component. This is not plastic recycling. It's closer to metal recycling, where there's inherent value in the actual material. And then quickly, land use is the second critique that's often put forward with solar. Right now in Malaysia, about 20% plus minus of the country's land is used for palm oil plantations. We don't really necessarily, this isn't a huge environmental issue, but we've already paved over 20% of our land to grow palm oil. To power all of Malaysia's power needs for the next 50 years would require about 1% of our land be dedicated to solar. And the important part of the conversation is, do you know what the return for 1 hectare of palm oil versus 1 hectare of solar? It's about 10 times more profitable to generate power with solar than to plant a palm oil plantation. So not only is if you compare it to our existing industrial output with palm oil, converting just a fraction, 5% of our palm oil plantation to solar yields higher profits with only a nominal conversion of land that we've already used for industrial purposes to generate palm oil. So these arguments, these conversations are great to engage with and great to have. There's no easy one-size-fits-all solution, but we do, for the first time in a long time, and increasingly have pathways forward for a more economically viable, cheaper, more sustainable future. Thanks.
Right, and then the panel that I use is one of the top in the market. They gave me 15 years warranty, and the performance warranty is up to 30 years. So in 30 years lifetime, I think it's more than enough.
Yeah. Edmund, that's a great point, because the panels themselves have a lifespan of 25 years or more. So we do have time to generate a domestic recycling industry that will come up to deal with the end-of-life issues. This is not it is an environmental solution that we know and anticipate is coming down the pipeline, but we do have a decade or more before those panels start hitting the waste stream in larger volumes.
Yeah. And Mitch, I would like to thank you for showing the microgreens project, because that was the project that inspired me to do what I'm doing now. I think it's from Uber, right?
Yeah. I know Michael from my time there. Yeah,
oh,
that's
cool.
That's
cool.
That's a great. So we have 2 Gelbers on the call, and we have 2 similar sources of inspiration. It's a small world.
Awesome. So any more questions, Ellen?
I don't have any more, and we will compile.
There's one question.
Yes.
Right, from Tracy about housing.
Yes, if Tat Sing can.
So
give your
yeah,
input,
if there's no other people who is more well-versed in housing, maybe I try to answer this.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so what we are doing is an example of a standalone house. So it is easier for us to get past all the restriction from authority, ranging from the building department of the local council to firefighting department and all that. People are skeptical about timber, whether is it plantation timber or natural timber or primary forest timber. When they hear timber, it's like okay, termite or disaster and all that. So this country, we are yet to go beyond this fear factor. And same goes to all the what do you call this, rules and regulation in terms of housing. So doing one house, we of course went through difficulties, but we managed to still bring it up. And if we're talking about housing, we are way behind this thinking. So there is no financing or about this. Hybrid material, yes. So that as far as I can recall, the Selangor state government has started to introduce this product called EcoPure, which is a recycle from Tetra Pak, the milk carton or the fruit juices carton, and introducing it to some affordable housing within the state of Selangor. So this is a good move. Besides that, we are yet to see more effort coming towards sustainability. So timber is far behind, but we hope the introduction of timber can be materialized one day.
Yes. One thing exciting I would like to add on to what Tat Sing is saying is that we, as in MTC and our timber community, we are working closely with FREEM to tackle the fire issue. So we have sent some plantation timber glulam to the lab, the fire lab in Frim Kapong. We are applying some sort of fire protection, and we are going to burn it. Let's say we can pass the requirements by Bomba standard. Hopefully that will be the beginning for us to to promote glulam as the main structure in Malaysia.
I think also to circle back to Tracy's question about B40, timber is timber in Malaysia is still, like Edmund mentioned, in process. So there's issues remaining, getting finalizing mass bomba approval and scaling up the industry, domestic industry to scale, and that's where you get real advantages from scale in terms of bringing costs down. But we can draw on examples from throughout the construction sector where sustainable solutions are already cheaper than business's usual practices. Ganesan talked a little bit about HeveaBoard into making sustainability integral to management of the company as a way to make the company more efficient, higher performing, and more profitable. And these are solutions that are applicable not just for companies, not just for high-end bungalows, but for mass housing and low-cost housing. We see that most directly with solar now. The cost of generating your own power with solar is cheaper than buying power from TMB in Peninsula Malaysia. And so we see solar panels being installed on schools. We see them being installed on homeless shelters, on government buildings, not to go green necessarily, but to cut costs. Electricity bill is one of our biggest costs. And so by installing solar panel on a high-end building, you save costs. But installing on a low-cost housing, you're creating energy independence for the residents that live there. And so I think that's really important. We're seeing a really remarkable and dramatic transition where these are not just expensive solutions, but these are solutions that can benefit everyone. Thanks.
Yes.
Okay,
right.
we'll have to stop. Edmund, you have something else?
Oh, I'd like to just add on to what Mitch
Yes,
just
one last point. Okay, great.
Yeah, in terms of money, my ROI is less than 2 years for my solar panel. So there's no reason not for us to install it if you have a landed house. And further that, I mean, I'd like to further elaborate a little bit is that maybe the TMB can have a more loosened regulation so that we can really do net metering for our power generations. Because right now they have a certain formula that is a bit confusing and also very difficult for us to calculate. But if let's say we can just do a net metering method, just we consume and then we generate and we have the balance of that, that would be much better. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Edmund. Okay, I will have 1 point each to recap for each of our panel session today. Thank you very much, Wikkie, for sharing with us the importance of forests. I think all of our discussion today will not have been able to happen without our very rich and mega biodiverse forests. So Wikkie also shared with us that timber is a sustainable material, but it is not renewable or not sustainable if it is not sourced from a sustainably managed forest. And Matthias shared with us how we can change our perspective of ESG and global trends and demand in mass timber. So start looking at ESG as an opportunity. What is our opportunity in our organization on ESG practices, whether it's looking directly at our electricity bill, like what Edmund mentioned, can we install solar panels to directly see the evidence of reduction in costs and also operational efficiency. And secondly, Matthias shared, what does your customer want? Start thinking from that angle instead of every time when we hear sustainability is something daunting or something scary, it's about compliance, So I hope you get an inspiration from there. And we also would like to thank Mr. Ganesan from HeveaBoard, who has been around the company for almost 3 decades to share with us his wisdom and also operational experiences. And evidently, we see from their sustainable practices that has been embedded in the organization for half of their operational years, 15 years of sustainable practices that has successfully helped them in their operational efficiency. And if I remember correctly, it has helped reduce 40,000 of the electricity bill for HeveaBoard. So I also hope that everyone get inspired and motivated by a local success story. Following that, we had Mitch, who shared with us earlier. Thank you, Mitch, for your insights in EPD, as well as what Malaysian Green Building Council is doing for to push for more sustainable building and construction in Malaysia. We welcome everyone to connect directly with Mitch and learn more about their membership program, so you get more knowledge and insights that is exclusive for MGBC members. And finally, I would like to thank Edmund and Tey Tat Sing for giving us a tour to your very personal home. I think with maybe many participants here also share the same sentiment as me, that your house is very beautiful. It is a bungalow, and I think we had a comment from Tracy asking about affordability. Right now, awareness is changing, and with more awareness and more demand from consumer, we hope to see more design like this that are embedded from the start of construction, from developers' point of view, so that instead of purchasing a land and building it ourselves, designing it ourselves, we can have more of these options, more affordable options, designed and developed by construction companies and developers, and also designers like Tat Sing, to give us more options. So I would like to also note that the last project that Edmund and Tat Sing shared on the glulam timber arch, MTCC is working on our first ever project certification for this project. If you remember how Wikkie has shared various international project that is PEFC project certified, this will be our first Malaysia project certification that we are working on with Tong Sim Group on the timber arch. So thank you, everyone. We have 80 more participants that are staying with us all the way to the end. So please share your feedbacks with us. You can scan this QR code. And we already received 4 responses, so we welcome more to come for our continuous improvement. I'd like to thank you all. Go grab your lunch. I'm sure everyone is hungry. And thank you for joining us. Our webinar is recorded, and we will share the YouTube link on our social media. So please follow our Instagram, Facebook, and also YouTube channel. You will be seeing this recording there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.